I used to believe strength was loud, that powerful women were the ones who slammed doors, raised their voices, demanded to be seen. I was wrong. Strength doesn't announce itself. It watches, it waits, and when the moment is right, it remembers everything. My name is Claire Holden, and for most of my life, people described me with words that sounded kind but weren't. Sweet, soft, understanding, the calm one. Those words followed me everywhere, through college halls, office meetings, dinner parties, and finally into my marriage. I didn't realize those same words would later be used to explain why they thought I wouldn't fight back. I met my husband, Matthew, when I was 26. He was charming in the way that made people lean toward him without realizing it. He spoke with certainty, laughed easily, and always seemed to know exactly where he was going. I admired that about him. He admired that I didn't challenge him. In the beginning, he called me his peace. He said I made the world quieter. What he meant was that I made him comfortable. We married 3 years later in a small ceremony filled with smiles, promises, and a future that looked perfect from the outside. People said we balanced each other. What they didn't see was how often I adjusted myself to keep that balance. I worked as a senior analyst at a marketing firm, a job I was good at, even if no one ever seemed surprised by it. I stayed late, I fixed problems quietly, I handed ideas to men who presented them louder. Matthew loved telling people that my job was flexible. It wasn't. I just bent. My best friend Lina was the opposite of me in every way. Loud, confident, fearless. She had been part of my life since college, and I trusted her like family. She knew my secrets, my fears, my doubts. She also knew my husband. At first, I was grateful they got along. Later, I would replay that thought and feel sick. The first crack didn't come with betrayal. It came with dismissal. Matthew stopped asking my opinion. He interrupted me mid-sentence. He made jokes about how sensitive I was whenever I expressed discomfort. Lina laughed along. "You overthink everything, Claire," she'd say, smiling like she was helping me. So I learned to stay quiet. When work became harder, I didn't complain. When Matthew forgot important dates, I didn't remind him twice. When Lina borrowed my things, my time, my emotional energy, I told myself friendship required sacrifice. That's the thing about women like me. We don't break loudly. We fracture internally. The night everything changed was painfully ordinary. Matthew left his laptop open on the kitchen table. He'd gone to shower. I wasn't snooping. I was clearing space. That's what I told myself. An email notification popped up. Not romantic, not dramatic, just careless. The subject line read, "Last night was a mistake we don't regret." I didn't open it right away. My body already knew. When I did, the words blurred, but the name at the bottom was clear. Lina, my best friend, my safe place, the woman who had been sitting across from me for months, telling me I deserved better communication from my husband while sleeping with him. I sat there for a long time. No tears, no screaming, just the quiet realization that my life had been happening to me, not with me. When Matthew came back, I closed the laptop. I smiled. I asked how his day was. He kissed my forehead. That kiss felt like a lie settling into my skin. I confronted neither of them that night. That was mistake number 1 they thought I'd make. Instead, I started listening. I noticed how Matthew spoke freely around me, assuming I was too gentle to act. I noticed how Lina grew careless, confident in my loyalty. I paid attention. Every lie, every pattern, every financial detail Matthew assumed I didn't understand. And something changed inside me. Not rage, clarity. I realized that they didn't betray me because I was weak. They betrayed me because they thought I would forgive anything. That belief would become their greatest mistake. I learned quickly that anger isn't immediate. It's quiet at first, almost invisible. It hums beneath your skin like electricity waiting for the right conductor, and when it finally moves, it moves with precision. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I didn't confront Matthew or Lina. Instead, I went back to my life, the one I had allowed them to control. I returned to the office, sitting at my desk like I had always done, but this time I watched instead of participating. Every meeting became an observation, every interaction a puzzle piece. I learned who relied on whom, who whispered in whose ear, who could be swayed with a single confident suggestion. I started to write again, secretly. Not a blog, not even work-related. Personal notes, strategies, reflections, emotional truths. I chronicled their mistakes, but more importantly, I chronicled me. Every betrayal, every slight, every time I had bent myself into a shape they found convenient. By the end of the first month, I had created a mental map. A map of power, influence, weakness, and opportunity. And the best part? Neither Matthew nor Lina suspected a thing. They thought I was broken. They were wrong. I also began rebuilding myself physically and emotionally. I had neglected myself for years, shaping my life around the comfort of others. Now I started running in the mornings, learning to carry my own weight, to trust my body, to feel strong again. I wore clothes that made me feel unapologetically seen, not for Matthew, not for Lina, for me. I surrounded myself with people who valued my voice, my mind, my wit. I was careful though, subtle. I couldn't let emotion rule my strategy. Revenge required clarity, and clarity required patience. Every week, I watched them spiral. Matthew grew careless, arrogant, thinking his betrayal was secret and permanent. Lina became brazen, flaunting her triumph over me as though she'd won some invisible war. They didn't see the truth. I was already winning. Work became my battlefield. I had long been competent, but underestimated. Now, every project I touched, I excelled at. Every meeting I attended, I contributed insights that made executives stop mid-sentence to take notes. Colleagues who had ignored me in the past now sought my opinion. Clients praised my strategic thinking, my clarity, my calmness under pressure. And Matthew? He visited my office one day to check on me. He looked surprised, confused even. I smiled, polite, controlled, not the woman he had believed he could intimidate or diminish. "Claire, you've changed," he said. "Really?" I asked. "I think you've always had it in you." I didn't tell him that he had underestimated my patience, that every slight, every betrayal had been a step on the ladder I had been building quietly, meticulously. At home, I enacted another subtle shift. I stopped catering to his moods. I stopped rearranging my life around his whims. I stopped pretending I was okay with his excuses. He began to notice, of course, but he didn't understand. He assumed I had become bitter. He assumed I was weaker. He was wrong. I started hosting small gatherings for friends and colleagues, inviting people I knew valued my intellect, my humor, my presence. Matthew and Lina were never invited. When they asked why, I smiled and said, "We keep our evenings intimate now." It wasn't just about social victory, it was about reclaiming my energy, my space, my power. The real work, however, was emotional. I confronted my own feelings. I cried when I needed to. I screamed into pillows. I journaled every thought, every plan, every memory of betrayal. I did not act rashly. I did not act publicly. I waited. Patience became my greatest weapon. And then,
After nearly 6 months of observation, preparation, and quiet rebuilding, the first opportunity presented itself. Matthew made a careless comment during dinner, bragging about a promotion he had achieved in part through Lina's support. His arrogance was thick in the air. He believed I was still the same woman he could dismiss. I smiled. I waited. I let it hang there for a moment before casually replying, "I've been working on a few things myself." The silence at the table was delicious. I've continued to develop my personal projects, essays, strategic initiatives at work, community events I led, all with a subtle touch that made people notice, quietly, without my having to announce it. By the time Lina realized that I was no longer the quiet, submissive woman she had scorned, it was too late. One morning, my writing, which I had kept anonymous, was published in a leading women's magazine. The essay was raw, personal, and thought-provoking. It explored betrayal, resilience, and the quiet power of women who are underestimated. The feedback was immediate. Thousands of readers responded, praising the honesty, the courage, the insight. My inbox overflowed with invitations to speak at events, conferences, panels. Matthew called me that night. His tone was careful, almost pleading. "Claire, I didn't know you were doing this. Why didn't you tell me?" I laughed softly. Not cruelly, not vindictively, simply softly. "Because," I said, "this wasn't about you." He was silent. He didn't realize yet that the tables had turned completely. Lina, of course, noticed my rise immediately. She had been flaunting her conquest, assuming I would crumble quietly in the background, as I always had. I watched her carefully. I never confronted her directly. I let the truth speak in subtle ways. Colleagues who admired me, clients who valued me, friends who respected me. Lina began to grow insecure. She began second-guessing. Her arrogance, which had once been a weapon, became her weakness. I allowed it to fester. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It didn't require scandal. It required time, patience, strategy, control. And the most satisfying part? Every step I took forward, every achievement I made, every recognition I received, Matthew and Lina had no power to stop it. They could only watch. By the end of the first year, I was unrecognizable to everyone who had underestimated me. Not physically, not dramatically, but in spirit, presence, and authority. People came to me for guidance, for partnership, for leadership. I had reclaimed my life entirely on my own terms. Matthew eventually tried to reconcile, offering apologies that rang hollow. Lina attempted to rebuild our friendship, but the trust had been broken irreparably. I listened politely. I smiled. I did not forgive lightly. I did not forget. Because the final act of revenge, I realized, wasn't in confrontation or exposure. It was in living fully, unapologetically, and successfully on my own terms. I had been underestimated for decades. I had been invisible. I had been dismissed. Now, I was unstoppable. I had spent nearly a year rebuilding myself. Every sleepless night, every silent observation, every whispered doubt I'd ever carried had become fuel. I had grown stronger, sharper, more patient, and now it was time for the next step. I didn't rush. I never rushed. Rushing is for the desperate. Patience is for the powerful. The first opportunity arrived at work. Matthew's company had been struggling financially, though no one outside his inner circle knew it. He bragged constantly about deals and partnerships, presenting an image of effortless success, while behind closed doors, mistakes piled like bricks in a wall he refused to see. I attended a professional seminar on leadership and women in business. The keynote speaker was brilliant, charismatic, the kind of woman who drew every eye in the room, Not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. I felt the stirrings of envy, briefly, until I realized I didn't need to compete with her, I only needed to show what I had become. When the seminar ended, I introduced myself to a few of the organizers, quietly but confidently sharing ideas for future collaborations. By the end of the week, my proposals were being discussed at the executive level. Matthew, meanwhile, remained in his world of bravado, blind to the rising storm I represented. At home, the tension between me and Lina had grown palpable. She believed that as long as I stayed silent, her conquest was safe. She thought the woman she had once mocked would remain powerless. I let her think that. Every smile, every nod, every casual conversation was carefully measured to appear harmless. Meanwhile, I documented every misstep, every lie, every sign of weakness. I wasn't cruel, I was meticulous. The public phase of my revenge began subtly. I started appearing at conferences, panels, and networking events. People noticed me. Colleagues, clients, and even casual acquaintances began to recognize my presence. Matthew's calls became more frequent, Lina's messages less polite. The moment I realized they were both watching, I knew I had the upper hand. One evening, at a charity gala, the opportunity arrived naturally. Matthew attended with Lina, of course, holding hands like they were untouchable. I walked in quietly, wearing a simple but commanding black dress. Nothing flashy, nothing desperate, just presence. People noticed me immediately. Colleagues whispered. Clients approached. Photographers began taking pictures, capturing a woman exuding quiet authority, intelligence, and charm. Matthew saw me. I saw him freeze, not out of fear, but recognition. Recognition that the woman he thought he had destroyed was now standing taller than he ever had. Lina glanced at me, confused, her smile faltering. She hadn't counted on me winning without even trying to compete. I moved through the room with grace, shaking hands, exchanging ideas, and sharing laughter. And everywhere I went, whispers followed. Who is she? She's incredible. I didn't know she was like this. I let it linger.
Weeks later, I released my first public article under my real name. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't vengeful. It was powerful. It was truth. I wrote about emotional betrayal, subtle manipulation, and the quiet ways women are underestimated. It resonated immediately. Thousands read it in the first day. Interviews followed. Speaking engagements multiplied. And Matthew? He called me, trying to sound casual, asking questions I didn't answer. I let him stew in uncertainty. I didn't even need to speak to him to make him feel the weight of my transformation. The next step required patience. I observed Matthew and Lina, noting patterns in their social and professional behavior. They were arrogant, overconfident, believed no one would notice their mistakes. I noticed. I built connections quietly, gaining influence in circles where they had assumed they were untouchable. One misstep, and I would reveal it strategically. But I didn't want public humiliation. I wanted inevitability. It came one evening when Lina made a careless remark at a work event, bragging about her influence over a major client. I documented it, I framed it professionally, and I shared it with the right people, executives who had previously ignored me. Suddenly, the tide began to turn. Matthew's company suffered a minor scandal soon after, a poorly handled merger, a mismanaged campaign, and in every meeting where he tried to recover, I was there, not as an aggressor, not as a gloating enemy, just as myself, confident, capable, untouchable. Colleagues began asking for my advice. Clients began seeking my guidance. Matthew's world shrank while mine expanded. Lina's influence began to fade. People noticed her arrogance and manipulation. They began questioning her credibility. She tried to counter it, but every attempt only drew attention to her errors. One evening, at a board meeting, she attempted to undermine me directly.
She questioned my strategic plan, mocking it subtly. I waited. I let the room absorb it. Then I presented my analysis calmly, clearly, and flawlessly. The executives were silent for a moment, then applause, and suddenly the contrast was undeniable. Lena's smirk disappeared. Matthew's jaw tightened. I didn't need to say anything. The room, the power, and the respect were all mine. The final stage was simple: public recognition. I began speaking at major events, sharing my story and insights. Not revenge, not bitterness, empowerment, clarity, leadership. The same people who had once dismissed me as quiet and compliant now sought my opinion. Matthew and Lina could no longer ignore me. They were still present in my life, but powerless. And the most satisfying moment came unexpectedly. A mutual friend approached me after one conference. She said, "Matthew tried to contact me. He wants to know how you did it, how you became untouchable." I smiled softly. I said, "I never raised my voice. I only raised my standards." Months later, I released a book compiling my essays, stories, and reflections on betrayal, resilience, and female empowerment. It became a bestseller. Media outlets called me the quiet force, the woman who rose without fighting, a master of patience and strategy. Matthew called me late one night. I listened to him stammer. He asked if I would consider speaking with him. I replied softly, "You had your chance to support me. You didn't. Goodbye." Lina attempted to rebuild their friendship with me, but I had no space left for her arrogance. I had transformed every ounce of pain, every betrayal, every humiliation into power. And the ultimate victory? I no longer needed anyone's validation. I didn't need revenge to feel complete. I was already unstoppable. The last year had been mine. Every day, every decision, every subtle action had brought me closer to this moment. I had rebuilt myself completely. Stronger, wiser, confident, unstoppable. And now, the final act was inevitable. Matthew and Lina had been watching, still trying to understand how I had risen while they had faltered. They did not realize that I had never needed to fight them directly. My revenge was never about them. It was about me. The first sign came during a corporate gala. Matthew and Lina arrived together, the same arrogant smiles, the same careless confidence. They thought the world still belonged to them. I entered quietly, my presence commanding without a word. People noticed me immediately. Conversations shifted, chairs turned, eyes lingered. It was subtle, quiet, perfect. Matthew's expression faltered for the first time in months. He had grown used to his own reflection in the world, but this was different. I did not speak to him. I did not even glance at Lina. I let my presence speak for itself. Every detail had been calculated, every step taken over months, carefully, patiently, quietly. And now the impact was visible. The second sign came when I released my second book. This one was strategic, not about revenge overtly, but about the silent strength of women underestimated by the world, the subtle ways betrayal can be survived, and the power of patience and dignity. It went viral. Interviews followed, conferences, panels, invitations from media outlets. Matthew called me that night. I didn't know you were planning this," he said. I smiled softly. "This wasn't for you," I said. The line went silent. Lina, meanwhile, began to unravel socially and professionally. Colleagues who had admired her intelligence began to question it. Clients started noticing discrepancies in her reports. Her confidence, once so unshakable, now seemed forced, brittle, artificial. I let her fumble. I did not interfere directly. I simply existed as the alternative, Calm, composed, intelligent, respected. The contrast was undeniable. The final confrontation was not explosive. It did not need to be. Matthew tried one last attempt at reconciliation, showing up at my office with apologies, excuses, and a desperate need for my forgiveness. I listened politely. I let him speak, and then I spoke. "You had your chance," I said softly. "You had years to respect me, to value me, to see me. You failed." He tried to interrupt. I continued. "You tried to diminish me, to dismiss me, to make my life about you. And yet, I am here, stronger, respected, successful, independent, and I did it without needing your validation." His face fell. He realized the truth. I no longer needed him. Lina, watching nearby, tried to argue. I smiled. "You had your chance too," I said. "You thought I would crumble quietly. You underestimated me. And that, more than anything, was your mistake." The emotional release came months later, quietly. I attended a professional awards ceremony, receiving recognition for my leadership, my resilience, my achievements. The room erupted in applause. Matthew and Lina were present. They clapped, but the respect was gone. They knew. I walked to the stage, calm, composed, smiling. I accepted my award, feeling a sense of closure I had never imagined possible. Every betrayal, every slight, every humiliation had been transformed into power. And the ultimate satisfaction wasn't in seeing them falter, it was in my rise. I returned home that night and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back was unrecognizable, not because of looks, but because of spirit. She was unbroken, unshakable, unstoppable. And finally, she was free. I thought of Matthew, of Lina, of the years they had tried to diminish me, and I smiled. I didn't need revenge to feel victorious. I had already won. The final lesson, whispered in the quiet of my home, was clear. You can underestimate a woman. You can betray her. You can try to silence her. But never mistake calm for weakness. Never confuse patience for submission. And never forget that the most dangerous woman is the one who rises quietly, steadily, and relentlessly until she can't be broken. I am that woman.